Good morning. Welcome to How to Use a Design Sprint to Guide Your Next Big Web Project. I'm Sarah Lean. I'm your moderator for today. And I'll briefly introduce Mary Cummins, who's our presenter. This is a marvelous Mary, and I will hand it over to her so we can get started. We're going to be holding our questions until the end. If you drop them into chat, I will ask Mary at the end so we can keep this session going because there's a ton of great information here. So here you go, Mary.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Glad to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. Lots of folks I don't know in the chat. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Mary Cummins. I work for the School of Business. I'm the web development and UX manager here. I have a team of 3 developers, and we work on all the external facing web properties for the school. And today I am presenting, and let me get my screen shared here. No, that's the wrong screen, I think. How's that? Can you see my slide, Sarah?
Looking great.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is How to Use a Design Sprint to Guide Your Next Web Project. Thinking back, I probably would just say guide your next project. You can use the design sprint really for any project. So I'm excited to share about design sprints, and I have a quick agenda for today. What I'm going to be talking about, what is a design sprint? How does it work? And for the how does it work part, I'll be doing going over a design sprint we did at the Wisconsin School of Business. We just wrapped it up last week, actually. And then I'll go over some lessons learned and what's next, and then time for Q&A at the end. And like Sarah said, we'll save Q&A for the end. You're welcome to drop questions in the chat at any time, and Sarah will ask them at the end. Okay, cool. Getting right to it. What is a design sprint? So, in short, a design sprint is a 5-day process for answering critical business questions through design, prototyping, and testing ideas with customers. This is from the Google Ventures Design Sprint website. Google Ventures is like the Google founders venture capital firm. They kind of were the ones who, I don't know, maybe they came up with design sprint, but they certainly popularized the concept of a design sprint. That really quick, intensive 5-day process for taking a business challenge and quickly testing a prototype with users and getting feedback on it. That's it in a nutshell. It's used by companies worldwide. There's a whole website called sprintstories.com. You can read about different companies using sprints. Google Nest used it for their app. Headspace used it when they wanted to expand their audience to kids and teens. H&M Home used it when they launched their new home brand. So it's pretty popular. There's some cool stories out there about design sprints. One way I thought maybe I could kind of relate this to some topics you all in the audience might already know is that I think a design sprint kind of combines some aspects of design thinking and agile, which might be some terms you've heard before. For design thinking, a design sprint is very human-centered. You get actual users involved. There's tons of brainstorming and iteration. It's a fun, creative process. And for agile, it's a quick process, quick, focused work. There's bias towards action. You want to get things done and just move forward with what you have. These are photos from the design sprint we ran at Wisconsin School of Business. So all the photos in the presentation are from the design sprint I just ran last week. My favorite way to describe a design sprint, though, is it's a shortcut to learning. It's a really quick way to get some information from your users and learn if your product is any good. So this is from the Google Ventures website. You start with your business challenge, and you've got 5 days to quick narrow down that challenge, figure out your users, sketch some solutions, decide on the best one, build a prototype, and then test it with your users. And at the end, you learn something about your product. So a good benefit of a design sprint is instead of waiting to launch your product to decide if your idea is any good, you'll actually get user feedback right away. You can get user feedback before you invest a lot of energy and resources into building anything. So that's an advantage of the design sprint. And the case study. So I'll go over the design sprint we did at the Wisconsin School of Business in May. This was part of a project we're doing called the Degree Comparison Project. So I'll give you an example of how we ran a design sprint. There's so many different ways to run a design sprint, but essentially it's rapid, several days in a row. You're all going to work on this the whole day, every day of your design sprint, this one challenge. And at the end, you'll test it and get some feedback from users. So I'll go through the School of Business's implementation. Our business challenge, or our challenge we had this School of Business, is that we have 13 different graduate programs. So those look like MBA programs, those look like one-year master's programs. We have 13 different programs. They're kind of the same in some ways. We have 3 MBA programs. We also have, a master's in finance, a master's in business analytics. And so a lot of different degrees that have some overlap, or maybe users would qualify for several of them or have interest in several of them. So our challenge is helping users find the program that's the right fit for their experience, career goals, and lifestyle. We actually did some user testing last fall, and we found some users giving us feedback like, oh, I'd like to be able to compare your programs side by side. There was no way on our current website to do that. They'd have to go to one program page and then another program page and switch between pages. So we got feedback then last fall that this was an issue. So this winter, we're like, okay, well, maybe let's go back to that issue we found and figure out what we could do about it. So the web team started talking about it. And then our director was like, it would be great if you could get user feedback too on whatever you want to build for this. And then she also mentioned the design sprint concept. And I'm an early adopter. I'm good to go with anything. So I was like, sure, I'll do a design sprint. I had never done a design sprint before. I read about it online, but I was like, sure, let's do it. So I teamed up with some colleagues and we decided to do the design sprint. We just went for it. We started planning way back, probably February, March. So that would be my #1 piece of advice. If you want to run a design sprint, it would be plan ahead and also get buy-in. So again, we started planning like February, March, and we just did the sprint the last week of May. So we had a lot of planning time. We also used that time to get buy-in. Like I said, our director was the one who kind of suggested this, so it wasn't that hard to get buy-in from leadership, but we had to get buy-in from, we wanted people to participate in our design sprint. So we had to get buy-in from their participants. We had to get buy-in from their managers so they could take the time to participate in this. So how it ended up working out was we decided to do 3 full days of a design sprint. We thought 5 would be too much. 5 days would be too much to ask for participants. So we decided to combine it into 3 days, 3 full days, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We did this in person, and we had 17 WSB employees participating in the sprint. So we ended up doing 3 teams of about 5 to 6 people. So again, this was a lot of people. We were asking for 3 full days of their time. And again, no one had ever done one before. This is a new thing, so they didn't know what they were getting into. We're like, hey, just stop whatever you're doing and do this project with us for 3 days. So it's kind of a big ask. We had to get the days on their calendars way in advance. We had to ask their managers if these days would work. Their managers would support them and encourage them to do this and understand that we wanted participation. And another way we kind of did some planning ahead and got buy-in is we did a day 0. So we had the 3 full days of the design sprint, days 1, 2, 3. We also did a day 0 where we did a 2-hour training session for the participants. We introduced the concept of it. And then we did a couple little exercises that mocked some of the exercises we would be doing in the actual design sprint to kind of give them a heads up what it would be like. For example, a design sprint moves super fast. So in the training session, we moved them from activity to activity super fast so they could get a feeling for that speed. So like I said, 3 full days. The way we divided it down is day 1 was going to be all about empathizing and defining. So empathizing with our users, defining their challenges when it came to comparing degrees on the website. Day 2 was all about ideating and prototyping. So lots of brainstorming activities, and then narrowing down to one idea and eventually starting to prototype that one idea. And then day 3, we gave teams time to finish up their prototype, and then they met with their users again to test the prototypes. So those are our 3 days. So it was a condensed design sprint, I guess, not the full 5, but it worked out well for us. And I will say again, plan ahead. Every minute of those 3 full days was planned. This is just a screenshot of a spreadsheet we made to help us plan. But you can see like every minute there down to like 10 minutes, 8 minutes was planned for each activity. We had an owner / facilitator of each activity. The objective of the activity, what we would do to facilitate it, supplies needed for every minute of the day. We planned in breaks, we planned in lunch. So again, it took a ton of planning to make this work because we wanted to make it worth people's time. We didn't want them sitting around being like, oh, I should be working on this instead of wasting my time here. We wanted to make every minute count. And a quick note on the users, the actual users we got. We recruited 6 prospective business graduate students, ones who are looking at graduate degrees. So with our 3 teams, that ended up being 2 users per team. And the way it worked out is we had an MBA only team. So those users were only looking at MBA degrees. We have 3 at the School of Business, so they're going to be comparing those 3 degrees. We had an MS only team. So some users who were looking at our specialized master's degrees, MS, masters. And then we had users who were debating between an MBA or an MS. They hadn't made up their minds at all yet about even what type of degree to get. So those were our 6 users, prospective students. On day 1, we interviewed them and like for the first time, getting to know them. And then day 3, we met those same users again and tested the prototypes with them. We did do these interviews, the testing on Zoom. So these are virtual. We didn't ask the prospective students to come in. We just met with them online. Finally, a piece of advice or a thing that worked well for us was to create an inclusive and creative space. Again, everyone's first time doing a design sprint, other than the web team members who participated in this. A lot of them just don't even have a lot of exposure to Agile or design thinking even. So it was really important to create a space for them where they felt comfortable. So we did that by reserving a Learning Commons classroom in Granger Hall. If you're not familiar, the Learning Commons in Granger Hall is very lovely, very bright, modern. We got a huge room, like nice big screens in it, tons of whiteboard space, just a nice environment to spend 3 full days and get away from your desk. We also ordered a ton of supplies. We used Post-its a lot. You'll see in my photographs. Lots of Post-its, chart papers, pens, Sharpies, stickers, tape, and scissors. We also catered breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack every day. So again, we wanted to make people feel like we were taking care of them and that these 3 full days, they're going to feel good. Also, lastly, a really cool activity we did on day 1 was a group norm setting activity. That's what we opened with on day 1. Again, to kind of set the tone, let everyone know what this is going to be about, make sure everyone was on the same page in creating that safe, inclusive environment. And I took a screenshot of the group norms we came up with. This is it. These are the exact norms we came up with that people came up with. We added them to a doc and had them up on the screen. So some of them were come with an open mind, expect unfinished work. That was a big one, I think, to put on the list for a design sprint, just because you move so quickly. In a design sprint, you cannot perfect something in a design sprint. So we really wanted to set that expectation that, you know, things will be unfinished. Similarly, don't get attached to an idea. There's always time to iterate on ideas, and things just keep moving. Listen to understand, assume good intent, trust the process. Some ones you might have heard before. Again, it will feel fast. A minimum viable product is okay. And then some good ones: have fun, eat food, stay hydrated, and get ready to collaborate. So this was a good activity. And actually, when we asked for feedback at the end of the 3 days, people said they really appreciated this kind of norm setting and setting the expectations so they know what the 3 days would be like. Okay, I'm going to go through some highlights from each of our 3 days next. At the very end of my presentation, I do have a list of all the activities we did each day, as well as links to resources that describe the activities and design sprints more. But I'm going to hit the highlights here. Day 1, that was the Empathize and Define day. So we started off with interviews. We actually also did an experts interview. So people who are experts on the topic of choosing graduate business degrees. So that was an interview with the School of Business's admissions and recruitment team. So that people at the School of Business who actually do the admissions of these students. So we interviewed them and we're like, hey, like when you talk to students, they do consultations with students all the time, or students send them Q&A questions. What kind of questions do you get? What do you see are challenges that students are having as they apply? So that was a good chance to get their perspective and just hear from people who work with these users all the time. And then also on that first day, we did the 2 user interviews with the actual prospective students. And again, these interviews were just to get to know them mostly. Who are they? What's important to them as they search for the right degree and program? You know, where are they in their journey? Have they started looking at any schools? What has that experience been like? What are they hoping to get out of a graduate degree? And then we had them actually look at some comparison tools on other sites. So other university websites we had them look at and then think aloud as they use that tool, think aloud what they were doing, what they liked, didn't like, what they expected to happen, maybe what was missing. So we got some really great feedback from them, just like feedback on kind of what they were hoping for, or what's important to them as they search for the right degree during these interviews. So after the interviews, we took that information and created some user personas, some journey maps, and a point of view statement, POV. A point of view statement is kind of like a user story if you're familiar with Agile. So really all this was trying to empathize with and define our users. So we created these little personas you can see in the picture on the right and the one in the middle too, who they were, a quote about them, a description, their goals, frustrations, tasks, and needs, to kind of distill all that information from the interviews down into this persona. For the maps, we talked about their journey, when they first start looking, when they are further along in their journey, what their next steps might be, all the way to the applying process. So that was day 1. We ended up with those point of view statements, POVs, at the end of day 1, which was just a short statement. You know, this user needs this so that they can this. Very similar to an Agile user story. But that short statement we could refer to then the rest of the design sprint. Day 2, ideate and prototype. Highlights from day 2 included how might we statements, HMWs. This seems pretty simple. You just take Post-it notes and write down questions that start with how might we. That's it. That's the start of it anyway. And it's, if you look at the design sprint resources I have linked at the end, they all really highlight this activity. And I was like, okay, well, we better do it. They all highlight it. And this was actually a really awesome activity. It really led to just like kind of that open-ended thinking, a creative thinking. The how might we statements kind of looked like, well, how might we validate users' concerns about this? How might we incorporate an interactive experience? How might we help users figure out how their career goals align with their degree? So questions like that, and people just kept going. They kept just spitting off these how might we questions. You'd hear someone's how might we, and then you come up with one of your own. So it sparked some really great conversation. And then, you group the how might we statements. You starting to think of the actual, like, well, how might we do this? You start thinking of those hows. So this was a really great activity, great conversation. Then we did something I call Crazy 8 sketches. Again, it came from the Google site. This was 8 minutes to draw 8 sketches of ideas for helping users compare degrees. So very fast, 8 minutes. I set a timer and they had 8 minutes to, these are kind of jumbo size Post-it notes. They got to make little sketches, like if you look at these photos, just very rough sketches, outlines with pencil. of those ideas, and then they talked about it with their group. We had them categorize them. You can kind of see like 4 quadrants made. They had, is this a low-hanging fruit idea, meaning it's easy to implement, or is this a long shot idea, meaning it's more difficult? Is this an innovative idea? Is it something that isn't really out there? Is this a delightful idea? Are users gonna be delighted by it? Meaning, is there personalization? Is there something that engages them? So we had them categorize, and then we had them vote with the stickers on their favorite sketches. And then eventually they had to narrow down their ideas to just one idea. So there was a couple more steps along the way, but eventually they had to take these ideas and narrow it down to one. And they storyboarded that idea, which is starting to put a little more detail into what this is going to look like, kind of different screens that the user would see along the way. So still a rough sketch, but more screens, more details, what you want, basically what you want to build in your prototype. We also then had them identify and assign tasks. So the 3 teams we created were intentionally created to include a variety of roles, so all could contribute to the prototype. We had like a developer, designer, copywriter, a strategist, and someone in a leadership position on every team. So that each person could kind of have a role or a task and contribute to the prototype. And a lot of groups did this by kind of writing the tasks on sticky notes, so kind of like a physical Kanban board. That's fun to see. And then they started working on the prototypes. Our rule was they just must be digital. That was it. Because we would be doing the interviews digitally. All teams elected to use Figma to create their prototypes. Figma is an online prototyping tool that our web team already had familiarity with. So that's probably why every team elected to use it. And then some key reminders here were your prototype doesn't have to be perfect. Build just enough to learn. Day 3, they got to finish their prototypes and then test them with users. I will quickly share some of the prototypes. So 3 teams, they had 3 prototypes. This first one, thumbs up if it switched to the prototype. Yes, thanks, Sarah. This one was the MBA and MS team. They had a really fun long shot idea to gamify the experience, make it like the game of life. This ended up being their prototype for that. They had the users take some quiz questions, like how many years of work experience, when do you want to start, and go through the quiz. This is their prototype. This is a pretty nice prototype. Actually, they created a pretty nice working prototype. I do want to get through the questions. So some questions, they asked the user about like who they are. And then based on your responses, it recommended 3 programs for them and then have a side-by-side comparison chart. So that was that group. So I'm going through these quick. The other group did complete a career vision statement. See your filtered program results below. So I am a working professional who wants to change careers with these goals, blah, blah, blah. And then it would give them kind of filtered top 3 master's programs based on your vision statement. Oh, this is really common to see. A lot of groups had CTAs like email my vision statement and results, download my vision statement and results. And then those 3 programs got slotted into a side-by-side comparison table again. We played around with different things with the comparison table. Like if you unchecked it, maybe that row would go away because you don't care about that piece of information. Or maybe you'd want to see, so it auto-populates with your top 3 programs, but maybe you want to see a different one. You could choose it. And then the last group did a very interactive table. I really went hard on the interactive table. They had, you could take away a whole column. They had, you could expand different content. Better bring that column back. You could expand different content. They had a bunch going on with their table. So those were pretty nice prototypes. Actually, we ended up with about 3 hours of prototyping time, which seemed like not enough. But the thing is, the prototypes didn't even have to work to show them to the users. The users understood these were just rough drafts. So it actually worked really well, because then the users felt comfortable sharing like genuine feedback, and they gave us genuine ideas and suggestions about how to improve them. So that went well. Then, we had the teams regroup, and based on the feedback they got from their users, we asked them to give their advice to the web team. After all of this, what is your top advice for the web team? Some examples were include a personalized experience, interactive experiences, consider how best to optimize a comparison table and make it customizable. Language should be similar across programs. Keep results limited. Having it narrowed down to 3 results was preferred, but users still like the option to view all. There's kind of that FOMO, fear of missing out syndrome. They wanted to see, what they didn't get as their top 3, just to be sure that those weren't the ones for them. And then finally help identify career goals and narrow down programs. Lessons learned real quick, I'll wrap this up. We had at the whole end of the design sprint, we had the participants say what they liked about it, what they wished about it, and then what they wonder about it. So some likes, they liked that it was well structured. Again, going back to all the planning we did. They liked the dedicated time to be a team and work like on a team so closely. They liked the mix of people on the teams. They felt safe expressing ideas. They liked hearing directly from the prospective students. They liked making progress quickly. And they liked the food, of course. Some wishes, they wish they could have had more users to test the prototype. They wish they had one business day between each sprint day. More time to work on the prototype. Wish my typical work days went by this fast. Wish we had time and resources to do this for more projects. Wonders, how could we do this for other work projects? How could we do this without making me feel so behind on day-to-day work? Wonder how a 5-day sprint would feel. Wonder what ideas would come out if we all had the same user sets, and wonder what this would look like virtually or hybrid. And what's next after this design sprint? Well, the web team has to get to work. We have to build something. Luckily, there were many commonalities between the prototypes. So I think some definite big takeaways. So we're hoping maybe, I don't know, we still have to, like I said, we just finished this up last week. So perhaps we could come up with one solution with different implementations depending on the specific audience. And we were originally hoping for a fall launch for this. So we'll see, that's the plan. Okay, and that's it, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed learning about the design sprint, and I have a couple minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
It's great to see the process.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sarah, am I still sharing?
Yes, you still are.
Oh, okay. Stop. Okay, any questions? Yes, someone was speaking. Sorry to cut you off. Was that Vanessa?
Yeah, it was me. I just wanted to give you a shout out and say it was great to see the process. I love that you had pictures too, of what was happening. It made me feel like I was kind of there while you were talking through each aspect of it. You highlighted some really good techniques, and I look forward to seeing how I can bring some of that, how might we, back into the things we do. So much appreciated, Mary.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, I did. At the end, I was glad I snapped a couple of pictures. I kind of wish I had asked our school's photographer to come to take pictures. Mine worked, I guess.
Oh, and to answer Danielle's question, the recording will be available in about a week or two of all the different sessions. Thank you.
Oh, yes. And I can quick share my link to my slides. It should be set up so anyone with the link can view it. I'll put it in the chat. And yet it has an appendix at the end with all the activities we went through, and then links to some super great resources. Like I said, Google's really trying to they wrote a whole book on the design sprint, trying to promote it. So there's great web resources out there. I see a question from Phil in the chat. It's early with it being done just last week. Do you think we will see buy-in for doing something like this again? I don't think we could do it more than yearly. Again, it was a big ask, or at least not at this level yearly, but it would be interesting to see how we could take pieces of it, kind of like Vanessa was saying, how we could take pieces of it and do I don't know, mini design sprints or something like that. But it was very cool. Like our likes list on the likes Wish Wonder was huge. And I think people really liked it. So they would definitely be interested in doing it again. It's kind of the planning and arranging that is difficult.
Well, unfortunately, we're at time now, and this is an excellent session. This is very cool stuff.
Thanks,
Um,
Sarah. Thanks
thank you.
everyone for coming, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you again, Mary. Hope you have a good day.
Bye.